Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to show you a multi-layer indirect painting of a realistic portrait. This piece is actually a demo from my online course. It's part of the advanced lessons on portrait painting. In this video, I'll take you step by step through the whole process, from the very first sketch all the way to the finished portrait. And I'll also talk about the mediums and colors I used. The complete painting took me more than 50 hours to finish, and I've uploaded the full process to my membership channel. If you're interested, feel free to check it out and subscribe to watch the entire video. So, the secret sauce of the multi-layer technique is all about applying super thin glazes of color and letting them build up on top of each other. That's how you get that amazing realism. If you follow along with the whole video, you'll notice something interesting. No single step is really that complex. The magic happens through the cumulative effect of all those layers, which gives the portrait its incredible, exquisite, and realistic quality. To get a really refined effect with multi-layer painting, you need a super smooth canvas. For this one, I actually made the ground myself, using a traditional method I learned back in Florence. It's pretty absorbent, so the paint goes on nicely without slipping around. I built it up by applying and sanding multiple layers, and after letting it sit for over 3 months, it's ready to paint on. Next comes the line drawing. First I sketch it out on drawing paper, then transfer it onto the canvas. On the back of the paper, I rub a thin layer of paint, place it over the canvas, and trace the outlines with a colored pencil. This way, the contour lines from the paper get copied right onto the canvas. The advantage of doing it like this is that I can refine the shapes more accurately on the paper, without risking damage to the canvas during corrections. Next is the underpainting stage, where I use a lean medium. At the beginning, I mix the paint with a thinner to sketch out the base layer. I'm using raw umber here, and since the canvas has really good absorbency, you can see the color spreads evenly across the surface. This stage is just a monochrome underpainting, so there's no need to worry too much about details yet. After it dries, I add another thin layer of transparent red ochre, again mixed with thinner. In traditional painting, it's common to work on a toned ground. The benefit is that it makes the layers feel richer, and also helps stabilize the underpainting. Sometimes I use canvases that already have a prepared ground, but other times, like here, I prefer building it myself to give the portrait a slightly warmer base. Once that layer dries, I move on to a more detailed monochrome underpainting, using lead white, ivory black, and raw umber. This stage is called Grisaille in painting. The medium here is a mix of thinner and linseed oil, about a 2:1 ratio, with more thinner. At this stage, I can build a more complete image, and all the colors later will be based on this underpainting. That's why it's such an important step. It really tests the artist's fundamentals. If you can do this part well, you're already halfway to success. After the painting dries for 2 days, I'll go over the skin areas with a glaze mixed from vermilion and green earth. I use a medium of thinner and linseed oil, about a 1:1 ratio. This adds a warm tint to the underpainting and builds up the layers. More layers make the skin tone look much more realistic. Since the last layer was so thin, it dried completely by the next day. On top of that, I used white to highlight the bright areas and a mix of vermilion and Davies grey for the darker shadows. I kept adjusting the color ratios to make it look more natural. Then, I used a soft brush to blend everything together smoothly. My medium was a 1:1 mix of thinner and linseed oil. At this stage, I'm just focusing on getting the overall color relationships right and connecting the colors with the facial structure. I can go over this process a few times to refine it, and each time, I'll gradually increase the amount of oil to follow the fat over lean rule. The next step is to intensify the colors. You need to let it cure for a good 5 days or more. I'm using straight linseed oil as a medium now, no solvent. Sometimes at this stage, the surface can sink and become too oily to paint on properly. To solve this, I carefully re-oil the area by wiping it with a cloth that has a tiny bit of thinner on it. This is risky. If the layer underneath isn't bone dry, you'll smear it. Because I had switched to painting the clothes after the last skin session, the wait time was built in, and the underpainting was definitely ready. This pass is all about boosting the luminosity and saturation of the skin, enhancing the rosy tones in the lips and cheeks, and popping the highlights to create a stronger chromatic and value contrast. At this stage, we can also paint in more details. We gradually switch to smaller brushes to render the fine details of the eyes, lips, nose, and hair. For detailing, I really like using Escoda sable brushes. They have a great point, hold their shape well, and don't spill out icily, which makes them very reliable. It's also important to clean and maintain your brushes properly after each use. This significantly extends their lifespan. Always remember, the details in a painting should serve the whole picture, not dominate it. It's easy to get so proud of a particular detail you've rendered that you miss how it might be hurting the overall composition. Imagine a viewer standing in front of your work. They should see a beautiful painting first, and then appreciate the details within it. To achieve this, you need to constantly step back and check the big picture, and be willing to edit yourself. A good trick is to take a photo of the entire piece with your phone. Looking at it on a small screen helps you focus on the overall rhythm and balance much better than when you're standing right in front of it. For the final stage, I soften the overall tone of the painting using a fatter medium, a mix of 2 parts stand linseed oil to 1 part thinner. Before painting, I apply a little bit of this medium to the area and then wipe off the excess with a cloth. This makes the surface smoother and easier to work on. Then, I use the same medium to mix with my colors. The stand oil gives the paint a richer gloss and helps the brush strokes blend more softly. The goal here is to harmonize all the colors, so no single detail sticks out too much and ruins the overall mood. In realistic painting, we often talk about the contrast between soft and sharp areas. This actually mimics how our eyes naturally see. In low light, our vision is blurry, while we focus clearly on the brighter parts. Understanding this allows us to intentionally soften details in the shadows and emphasize them in the light. This keeps the painting from feeling overcrowded and lets it breathe. In summary, the multi-layer technique is all about pursuing a more perfect and realistic result. The key is mastering the process and having a clear sense of how complete each stage should be. In the final painting, it's hard to point out which specific layer does what. It's the result of all of them building up, making the image richer and richer. Sure, it's more time-consuming than painting directly, but the final piece is undoubtedly more realistic and has a greater power to move the viewer. Alright, that's all for this video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed it. See you next time.